when you look back on that, you got to get some absolute things. We did this right, and we did this really wrong. Give me a couple of those.
I think what we did really right is that we were able to recognize what was happening in the industry. We were able to respond. We were very nimble. Mm-hmm. It's not like a big company that's like trying to turn an aircraft carrier. Mm-hmm. We knew we were nimble. We were willing to go up against the big boys. We weren't scared of them. As a matter of fact, I would get excited every time I heard somebody got ticked off about something that we were doing. We're like, at the beginning, we're this little lap dog yapping at your leg or whatever, and nobody paid attention to us. But all of a sudden, I'd hear stories about people were talking about us, mm-hmm. other brands, mm-hmm. in their marketing meetings, and I got excited about that. But I think the biggest, if I were to go back and redo things, and I don't want to redo much, because I think if you change any little thing, it's like blending whiskey. You can change 1% of something, ended up with something totally different. I think we sold too soon. I really do. I think that it was a decision not just made within our family, but with our partners. Mm-hmm. And everybody saw this meteoric rise of the industry, and people start thinking, well, maybe it's not going to get any better. Mm-hmm. I think that we didn't need to sell. Mm-hmm. We had no debt. We had a great distribution platform. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of runway left, but we had some folks that wanted to exit. So I regret that to this day. Once again, I would never change it, because things could have been different, Dave. Mm-hmm. We could have screwed it all up. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't mind having the company where it is now when it's worth a couple $1 billion. That wouldn't stink.
I would not hate that.
No, I wouldn't hate it.
All right. Very good. So after making the sale, you stayed on a while, worked for Bacardi a bit, mm-hmm. and then I guess a non-compete, I suppose, ran out. I would imagine that's normal anyway in that world. And so then you could have just retired. Obviously, you had enough change in your pocket. You had a liquidity event. So what pulls you back in and, to True Story and to get this whole new brand moving?
I think before I get on to the True Story, I think a quick note is that we had a great acquisition with Bacardi, and that's the reason I stayed. It was a really good example of a big company not screwing up a small company, which happens more often than not. Yeah. Right? Especially a family brand.
So to their credit.
Absolutely. To their credit. Now that doesn't mean it wasn't a 24-hour job for me to make sure those guardrails were up, to make sure they didn't screw it up. Mm-hmm. But they were smart enough to leave us alone. They knew they had to make rum. We knew that we knew how to make bourbon. So, those ends never kind of came together. I could have done nothing. I wasn't built that way, Dave. I don't think. I tried some other things. I have some other interest, and our family's been in emergency services for a long time. We've done a lot of those things, which I got a lot of joy in. But I'm a creator, and I really wanted to do something with the boys. So it seemed like this might be the thing to do.
Okay, so you did something with your dad. Now your boys are doing something with their dad. Mm-hmm. How's that different?
Oh, wow. It's a lot different. Number one, I have 6 sons. So there's
it's not a one-on-one.
There's a little more to manage there.
Competition. Okay.
With my dad and I, it was a very interesting dynamic. I really came back to the table with a lot of business and marketing experience, although I had the palate. I was around whiskey all the time. I knew how to make whiskey. Dad was this legendary master distiller, just a force on his own. But we worked so well together. And Dad was very nurturing. And I think all Dad wanted to do, once again, to work with me and work with his grandkids. I think with the boys, it's a little different dynamic. If anything, just the numbers, mm-hmm. So I'm dealing with 6 kids, all of them with different interests, mm-hmm. at different ages that have different accomplishments or have reached different plateaus in the business.
Different gifts.
Different gifts. And this isn't just in business, it's with your kids. You can't put your kids, if you're smart, you don't put your kids in a box and make them want to be what you think they need to be or what they need to be for you. You have to recognize those gifts. You've got to give them the runway to do it, and you've got to nurture all of that. And that's part of it's not going to work if you don't do a lot of that stuff.
You got to work at it. Yeah, there's 6 opportunities for somebody to be mad all the time.
Right. And for the most part, though, I tell you what, most of it, especially at the beginning, they would direct at each other. It's that competition amongst brothers. Mm-hmm. There's those little jealousies. Once again, hey, this one's older. Why does this one have more responsibility? Why does this one get to do this? I'm like, well, this one's been in the company for a lot longer than you have. He's earned that. That doesn't mean you can't achieve that on your own. So it was more, I think, the dynamics between them, but there's also the dynamics with Dad and those shifts. And as they learn more, as they get more responsibility, as I start to learn that they know more and start giving them more. But, and look, Dad's not perfect either,
So what was the date that True Story began? What's the official date?
We launched the brand in October of 2024. So it hasn't been very long.
It's not even a year old.
Not even a year old yet.
Okay. I thought I was around about that time. I thought I remembered that showing up. I know you showed up at an event we were doing about then. And if I remember, I think you sent me pictures of the bottles.
I did. I was so excited.
Yeah.
I had to show you.
Yeah, I was excited to see them. I'm honored to watch from the inside a little bit. That's pretty cool. So I love the brand title because, as you said, so much friendship and relationship occurs around some brown water and a good cigar. And so True Story is a story. I think the underlying marketing touch of that's genius. Talk about how you came up with that.
One of the things that really made me think about the name True Story is I was at an event in Houston, and we were sitting in a like a library with overstuffed chairs. And it wasn't a typical bourbon event where it's an educational seminar. It's just a bottle signing. I had people in a room, 50 people in a room. I sat down in an overstuffed chair in the middle of the room, and we just had a conversation about bourbon. And that really clicked with me. Another thing that clicked with me is when I sign bottles for people, they'll say, I'm not going to open this. I'm going to keep this. And the first thing I say is buy two, right?
Yeah.
That's always the consummate salesperson in me. I'm always selling. But there's so many stories.
One to collect, one to drink.
There's so many stories inside that bottle waiting to be told, and you need to open those. And I like being present, Dave. I think I'm present by proxy at a lot of events. At the end of the day, when you've had a good day at work, a bad day at work, when somebody passes away at a wedding, whatever that situation is we're there with you to start the conversation. And that's how I look at bourbon. It facilitates those moments that make a difference.
Yeah, it does. And I guess it's probably the southern roots of the whiskey that kind of give it that ambiance, that flavor, so to speak, is that it just sitting on the back porch, hanging out with some guys, or hanging out with your family or whatever it is, or after, like you said, a long day at work or whatever it is, that kind of a thing. It's different than a typical cocktail in the way it's consumed and the situations it's used in. And that's why I think True Story is a great brand. And so right now you've got the high rye out, and you got a bourbon blend out, right?
We do. We started out kind of in the same sandbox that we're in before with secondary barrel finishes. I think we do it better than anybody else. We've got a bourbon finish in white muscatel casks, and we've got a rye finish in amberana and sherry casks, and they're very distinctive. The flavor profiles are just incredible, especially the rye. It's off the hook, and we're getting great consumer feedback from it. People love the package. You see that package and you can't miss it.
It's completely different than anything else on the shelf.
It is, and then that's scary. I've had a lot of back and forth in my mind but it was the same with Angel's Envy. When the Angel's Envy bottle came out, it was so different. But what I've learned, Dave, over the years is I think that when I find when I'm starting to get uncomfortable a lot of times as we're pushing the envelope, that means I'm on the right path. And you have two choices. Either you feel like, okay, I'm uncomfortable with this, I'm scared of it, or I'm uncomfortable enough that I'm going to kind of explore this a little bit more and find out whether or not that's something that could lead to something special.
So, consummate family business, now two different generations, two different endeavors. So that gives you a unique view, because there's not a straight line through this. It's a start, stop, start again thing. And so that's a different vibe than a standard legacy handoff, succession, third generation, fourth generation's taking over the business, because we had the sale and then a fresh start again, and now with the boys. So when you think about family and business together, what's the one principle you would pass on to the entrepreneurs out there? Because one of the top questions we get our subject matters questions that we get is just family business questions all the time on this show.
Well, and you've always been really good at those discussions. And I've thought about this really hard. And I think where I land is that to me, it's got to be family first. And I have to explain what that means to me. Family is not always your immediate family. It's your team members. It's everything else. At the end of the day, as a family unit, your immediate family, I think family has to come first. You have to have healthy relationships because all this bleeds into the business. If you don't have that bedrock of communication, if you're not regularly communicating, we're big on family meetings. Mm-hmm. We talk once a week. Now, do we do it every week like we're supposed to? No. Should we be disciplined enough to do it every week? Of course. And I find out where we start to drift in those relationships is when we're not having that communication. So, and look, people are going to screw up. I'm going to screw up. The boys are going to screw up. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that we're in this together. Businesses come and go. Family's always there. Yeah. But without that cohesive family unit where we're doing the right things, and really, Dave, I want my kids to be good humans. I really do. I want them to be successful. I want them to experience wonderful things in life. I want them to have the financial, rewards for working hard and giving them independence because I believe that brings independence if you're successful. Sure. And that's what I want from them. And so family first, that's got to be it no matter how crazy things get, no matter how stupid we get, stupid mistakes or whatever, we have to be together.
Amen. Co-founder of Angel's Envy, and now the owner and launching of a new brand almost a year ago called True Story. Legend in the whiskey world, in the bourbon world, my good friend Wes Henderson. Wes, thanks for hanging out with me, brother.
Thanks, my friend.
Appreciate it. Good times, good information, solid stuff. Good stuff.